the one, the only, Ben Good morning, welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Just Daf. Today we're doing Maseches Gittin, Daf Pei, number 80, double 40, is 80. 10 blot left, pretty good. We'll be finishing hopefully in a week and a half from now. The Mishnah says, on the bottom of Ayin Teram Beis, Kosav l'shul malchus she'eino hogenes. Right? The Chazal, we see from this Mishnah, instituted that you're supposed to date your get according to the kingdom where you live. Right? You say, for example, right in the United States, you say, right, 2023 would be, 1776, they declared independence. So let's do the math. That would be 224 plus 23 years, 247, 247, I believe. 247. The 247th year of America. That's what you write in the get. Really, if you write a guess, you have to write it in the get. However, let's say you don't write. You write it for a different kingdom. Right? You date it from the Roman Empire. And again, as the Gemara explains, the Roman Empire. L'shul malchus Madai. Or you date it for the kingdom of Madai, which has since expired, l'shul malchus Yavan, or the kingdom of Greece. Or you date it l'binyan Abayis, right? When the Beis Hamikdash was built, the second Beis Hamikdash, l'chorban Abayis, or from 70 AD, right? This year was 1955, since the Chorban Abayis. It's considered to be, it's possible. You have to write the malchus that you're currently living and residing in. Right in Israel, it'll be 75 years. Hayab ben Mizrach, because of Amarov, he was in the east and he wrote in the west. Now, I believe this is talking about, it's not in one town or one city. You're in the eastern hemisphere of the world, and you wrote the western hemisphere. Amarov, because of Mizrach, or you're in the western hemisphere, you're in the eastern hemisphere. Teitzei Mizal, you have to leave both marriages. In all these cases, you write the wrong kingdom, you date it wrong, or you write the wrong place, so the get is not a valid get. Now, the Rabbanan Institute is not a valid get. These are not midoraisa, it's not a valid get. The Rabbanan Institute, you have to write certain things in a get. Now, it's machlokas between Rashi and Tosfos, an important machlokas over here. When we say Teitzei Mizeh Mizeh, it doesn't mean, right, if she, first of all, she has to leave the first marriage, because it is a get. Technically, midoraisa, it's a get. Sorry, according to Tosfos. According to Tosfos, technically the right says a get. The Rabbanan don't have the ability to say it's not a get if he didn't do something which they were masakim in the Rabbanan. So therefore, according to Tosfos, right, it was a get. So she's legally married to the second person. She remarries the second person. She needs to get midoraisa from the second person. And the Rabbanan, she needs to get from the first person. According to Rashi, it's the opposite. The Rabbanan somehow had the power. We'll explain this more in Yud Ben Sion, to be oker, to say that if you didn't follow our rules, so therefore it's a biblically invalid get, and therefore she needs to get midoraisa from her first husband. Her second husband, she doesn't need to get from. A woman can't be married to two people, but she needs to get midorabanan. So that's what Teitzei Mizeh says. She has to leave both marriages. She needs to get from both of them. Ein la lo ksuva v'lo peiros v'lo mizonos v'lo blos lo zev v'lo zeh. She has no claim to a ksuva from both husbands, the one she previously was married to and the one she remarries, and not peiros. Peiros, right? Well, her peiros from her field or nechsem will go to the husband, but this really means that she's not entitled to be ransomed. The husband has to ransom her if she's taken captive. V'lo mizonos, and not mizonos. V'lo blos, lo zeh. She has no right to mizonos. The husband has to feed her. And blos is she wore clothes. She gets to keep them, the worn out clothes. Once she leaves the marriage, she doesn't get them from either husband. Im not lemizem, any of these four monetary payments she took, taxir, she has to give it back. Abad mamzer. If she has a child from either of these, goes back to the previous husband, or has a child from the second husband, the child is considered a mamzer, right? According to Tosfos and Rashi, it would be machlokas which child would be mamzer deraisa and which would be a mamzer derabanan, depending on which is the real marriage. Neither husband can bury her if he's a kohen. And neither it's not a marriage either of them. Just like she does not have the rights of a marriage, he also doesn't get her what she finds and not her wages. He can't be made for an adarim. If she was a Jewish girl, married a daughter of Israel, so she went ahead and married the second man, she becomes a zona. She did a bia, which is aser. She can't marry a kohen. She's a zona now. Bas Levi, top of Pei Manal, Bas Levi, if she's daughter of a Levi, Mina Maisa. If she goes ahead and remarries a second guy, she's becomes puzzled from ever collecting meiser. And Mas Kohen, not truma. She's daughter of a Kohen. She loses out, go back to her father's house and get truma. Ve'ein Yorshin Shalzev, Yorshin Shalzev, Yorshin Ksuva. So this refers to Ksuva's been different. Right? We said there's no Ksuva to begin with. However, if she were to die before the husband, so the husband inherits her, right? The husband would still inherit her. However, part of the Ksuva is one of the Tanai Ksuva, stipulations in the Ksuva that are going to enforce, is that her children get to inherit if the husband then dies. So the amount of the Ksuva goes to her children, and not if the husband has other children. Those children from this wife would get her ksuva. In this marriage, from neither husband, there's no ksuva has been indifferent. Her children are not entitled to the value of her ksuva. V'mesu, echav shalzev, echav shalzev chosim al miyamin. If they died, right? If the husbands died, right? The husbands of either the original marriage or the one she remarried, and again, she didn't have any children, and they had a brother, so they have to do chalitza, not you. We don't allow them to do yibum. We enforce them in the rabbanan to do chalitza. Shina shmo b'shma shem ira v'shem ira teitzei mizeh mizeh v'kol edracham eluba. The Mishnah adds in also, if you don't write the correct name or the correct name or the correct city or the correct city that he's living in and she's living in. Right? You have to be very careful. Help us get in the right city. Whatever we said previously applies also. In these cases, if you wrote these things wrong. Kol rayos, the Mishnah adds in some halachas, which are not really relevant to Maseches Gittin, but are relevant to this penalty that Rabbanan enforced on both husbands. Kol rayos she'amru sarosein mutaros. This is a reference to the first Mishnah, Maseches Yevamos, right? If a man falls to him in Yibum, in Erba, the simple case is a father has a daughter, and the daughter marries her father's brother or uncle. He's allowed to marry the uncle, and then they die, and then the uncle dies without any children. So the daughter falls to the father. The father can't marry the daughter. So if his brother had co-wives, also not just daughters, so not only is his daughter exempt from Yibum and Chalitza, but also the other Saros are also exempt. The Gemara learns in the beginning of Maseches Yomos, they're also exempt from Chalitza and Yibum. However, if it turns out that this daughter is an islandess, she is incapable of having children, so we know that islandess is excluded from the category of Yibum and Chalitza. So it only exempts the other Saros, the other co-wives, when she's really an erva. She can't get married just because she's an erva. She's an island. She's not capable. She's not part of the parsha Yibum Chalitza. The Tsaros are not allowed to remarry without Chalitza. And if they do remarry, so they can't, right? They can't get benefits from either husband, right? The original husband who's now dead, or the new husband. It wasn't really their fault. The Gemara will explain why this is true. Let's say a man, a Yavama fell to a man, right? He picked, right? Well, a husband died, he had 3 wives. He picked one. You can't pick all the wives, you pick one. He picked one wife. And then her co-wife, right, which is now free. Once he picks one wife, the other wives are free from Chalitza and Yibum. And she married someone else. However, the one who did Yibum, we find out that the woman is an islandess. She can't have children. So again, it's not an effective Yibum, so therefore she's not allowed. She needed a Chalitza. So the co-wife, or remarried, she has to leave her second husband also. And she can never marry the third, the Yavam either. Kasav Sofer Gel Ish, Shover Isha. Mishnah gets back to Maseches Gittin. The Sofer was supposed to write a get for the man, so he can give it to the woman, and write a receipt for the woman. The woman has a receipt. When she gets the get, she gives it to the man as a receipt. The man can hold it that he gave her a get. Vita, however, he made a mistake. When us the get Isha, he gave the get to a woman, Shover Ish, and they didn't look at it. And the man ended up giving the Shover the receipt in place of the get. And she gave him a get. Obviously, it doesn't work for a woman to give a man a get. And they're claiming afterwards, they found out, wait a second, the man's holding on to the get and the woman's holding on to the shover, the receipt, something's going on with a mistake. It was a mistake, but nonetheless they violated, right? It wasn't considered a valid get, and she remarried unlawfully. So again, we penalize them in all these cases. Lezer says not so fast. Get. If they discover right away and they come to base and say, "What the heck?" The man says, "Why do I have a get?" And she says, "Why do I have a shover?" Right? So then we assume a mistake made, and then we penalize them. However, after a long time, they figure out, wait a second. They look through their document and say, "Why do I have a get?" And she has a shover. We don't trust the original husband much later on. If it happened right away, we trust him. But if it happened much later on, the Gemara will discuss how much later on it has to be. So then we don't assume that she got remarried to someone else. We don't trust the first husband to ruin the marriage to the second husband. The Gemara says, "My malchus she'eino hogenes." Which kingdom are we referring to that's called not fit for kingship? Malchus haRomayim, the Roman Empire. But my karle malchus she'eino hogenes. Why is it called malchus that's not fit? Mishum de'ein lahem loksav l'lashon. They don't have their own language, and they don't have their own script that makes them not official language. And apparently Malchus Romi still continues still to this day. Where is the Roman Empire nowadays? Which part of the world is the Roman Empire? That's for up to you to decide. Some people say it's America. I don't think it's America. Maybe it's Rome. Maybe it's England, right? Where does the king live? The king. There's only one king, real king in the Western Hemisphere, right? The King of England, King Charles. That's what I would say is the Romaeum, right? They don't have their own language. Latin, right? Latin was an old language that eventually became English. English is not something new. Amrullah, takinu malchus begittin. Why did they make a takana in the Gittin? Mishum shalom malchus. Why did they make a takana? You have to write the kingdom where you're in for peace, because they don't want to see either you leave it out or you write a different kingdom, so it's offensive to the government you're living under. Right? You make a mistake about writing which kingdom it is, that's only a takana d'Rabbanan. How could the child be a mamzer? In the Gemara says, "Ramei tamei da'amra hunam mishmei de'ula omer yaremeir kol mashana memabeh shetivu chachamim begittin havla mamzer." Rameir says, anyone who changes from the formula that Chazal formulated the get, it's an invalid get, and the child from an ensuing marriage is a mamzer. Now, it's seemingly they were masaking these things only d'Rabbanan. They're masaking only d'Rabbanan, and how is the child a mamzer? That's Rashi assumes that way. Mamzer d'Oraisa. According to Tosas, it's not a mamzer d'Oraisa. If she married only, it's really a valid get. D'Oraisa according to Tosas. We'll talk about Rashi's sheet. I think is accepted halacha. We'll talk about that. Explain that in Ian with Ben Sion. The Shumachas Yavan writes from the kingdom of Yavan, of Greece, the Sricha. It has to say all these cases. The Ashbin of Malchus Sheino again. It just said the Roman Empire, Mishum de Malicha, because it's still in power. Of Malchus Madai Yavan, Hava. Maybe the government you're living in the United States, they don't care about writing about the Greek kingdom or the kingdom of Media, wherever Media is. Madai, because it's not in power anymore. It's not offensive. Nonetheless, it still is a problem. That's disparaging of the current government because you're talking about a different government. But the Beis Hamikdash is not really a government, and who cares? And if it just said Binyan Abayis, from the time Beis Hamikdash was rebuilt, the government will get offended because they're talking about their Beis Hamikdash, and they're not talking about us. When they mention dating it from the Churban Abayis, which was a catastrophe which happened to Jewish people, and it's not something which they're proud of, then it wouldn't be offensive to the kingship. Kamashman Saricha, it is offensive in all these cases, and you have to write the right kingdom. I have a Mizrach because of a Marav. He was in the Eastern Hemisphere. They wrote the Western Hemisphere. Man. Who is it we talking to? You don't know about Baal. If we said the Baal, right, we wrote his Vishmo Shemiro Vishemiro, we're talking about the place where he lives, right? He lives in China, and you say he lives in the United States, or he lives in the United States, he lives in China. So that's Shemiro Vishemiro. It's included in the city. El Alav Sofer. It's talking about the Sofer also has to write in the get where he's writing the get. Rav told to the Sofer, to the scribe he used to write Gittin. Rav also said this to his scribe. Even though you were informed to write the get in a different place, a different city in Babel, and you happen to be writing it, you play it into a different place, shili, write shili in the get. Behini v'chi yasvisu behini v'chi yasvisu behini ksuva behini al gam misur l'chomila b'shili. Even if you were told to write the get in shili, if you're currently in hini, that's what you should write in the get. The sofer has to write where he's writing the get. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Zu, the top of Peyam Beis. Zu Divrei Meir. Our Mishnah reflects, at least the first half of the Mishnah reflects the Divrei Meir. V'cham omrim afilu lo kasav ela l'shem santer shabeir. Even if you didn't write the United States, you wrote the mayor. You wrote Eric Adams. You're living in New York City. Shira Reizim Garesha. It's a get. How Gita? There was an incident. The Havak Sivbe l'shem istandra. Look, it had the name not of the mayor but of the governor, right? Kathy Hochul in New York. The Sheikhar, the Biskar, the city in Bavel. Shachar of Nachman Bar Chisa l'kamei the Rabbah. They were unsure if this was offensive, not writing the United States. He sent to front of Rabbah. What's halacha? In this case, even Rameir admits my time. Ma'osa malchus who? Right? Even though writing the mayor is not good, but the governor is the governor of a state. It's the United States of America, so it's okay. It's not offensive to the government. What's the difference between mayor? Hasam is Yiluhu Milsa. To write just the mayor of a city, there's many cities in the United States. That's Hacha Shvicha Luhu Milsa. However, to write by the governor as one of the United States, that's right, it's a bunch of states together. That's really what it is. It's 50 countries, America. People don't realize that America is 50 countries. They think America is only one country. Why is it the strongest nation in the world? Because it's one country that's 50 countries. Amar Rab, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rab. Zudiver Meir. Rab says, our Mishnah reflects in Meir. The Chamim say, the Vlad, in the case at least Malchus, Shlom Malchus, is considered, you wrote the wrong Malchus, you didn't write Malchus. The child is kosher if she remarries. It's not a mamzer. Amodim, Chamim Meir, Chamim Meir, Shem Shina Shmo B'Shma, Shem Ira V'Shem Ira, Shavan Mamzer. However, in the last case in the Mishnah, where they switch the name of the man or the woman, or the city that each of them are currently residing in, right? And they remarried, but she remarried based on that guess. The Vlad is a mamzer. That's an invalid get. Amar Rav Ashi, we can also prove that our Mishnah says this explicitly. Shina Shmo V'Shma, Shem Ira V'Shem Ira. Teisem Mizem Mizet. V'Kol Drachma Elubah. That's what the Mishnah said towards the end. Haman Kasanila, who ended off the Mishnah. Yilim Meir. If it was Rameir, right, who began the Mishnah, because he was the one who said about Malchus, Shlom Malchus, there are Vinulas Nino. Why did he stop? He started the Mishnah talking about Shlom Malchus, and then talking about where the Sofer lives, and then at the end of the Mishnah, he talks about the same halachas apply if Shina Shmo V'Shma Shem Ira V'Shem Ira. Why didn't he mix them all together? Ela Shmamina. The end of the Mishnah is the Rabbanan Shmamina. So the Rabbanan agree with Meir halfway. They say by Shlom Malchus, if you get the kingdom wrong, or you get the city, the place where the scribe writes it, that does not possible to get b'di'evid. However, it only possible to get b'di'evid, and the Vlad Mamzer, if they change the name of the year, his name, her name, or his city or her city, those are important, and they would invalidate the get according to Rashi Midoraisa, and the child will be a mamzer. We'll talk about this is the halach, accepted halach. I'll tell you why there's a difference between the two things in Eon with Ben Sion coming up in the next year after this. Kol Arayos Sha'amru. The Mishnah continues. All the Arayos, right, is talking about, this wasn't relevant. The Mishnah was talking about something relevant in Mesachas Yevamos. Right? There were two cases about Hilchos Yevamos, right? One about the first case in Mesachas Yevamos, where it talks about where Erva falls to Yibam, all the co-wives are exempt. And the second case is where one of the wives, there were three wives that fell to Yibam. One of them did Yibam, the others were exempted. One does Yibam, you don't need Chalitz or Yibam. And in both cases, she was found to be an islandess, so therefore, unfortunately, it was a mistake, but the Yibam was not a good Yibam, and therefore, these women who remarried are usher both to the Yavam and to the new husband. They have to leave, and their children are considered Mamzerim, and all the halachas in the Mishnah apply. So the Gemara is Medayik needs to win. It says in the Mishnah if they went ahead and remarried, Zinu lo. However, if they just went ahead and had Znus, meaning they were together out of wedlock, right? It would not make them usher to both husbands and penalize them all the way the Mishnah penalizes them. Say our Mishnah is a refutation of Rav Hamnuna's opinion. The Amar Rav Hamnuna, Shomeres Yavam Shezinsa Asura Liyavama. Shomeres Yavam, that even if she was together out of wedlock, right? she's usher to a yavam, right? It doesn't have to be dafka married, even if she was mizana, even if she was together out of wedlock, she's also the yavam. The Gemara says lo nisu. It's not a proof for Mishnah against Rav Hamnuna. When it says nisu v'hu din lezino, it means it would include also if she's mezana, even if she was together with the man outside of wedlock. But Haydetani nisu lishna ma'al yanaka. Nisu wasn't meant to say married; it just means together. They were together. It's just a nice way of saying that it includes obviously if she was together out of wedlock. Vika da'amri, some say our medayik from Mishnah nisu. Mishnah says nisu v'hu din lezino, right? Nisu is just formality, or like the Gemara's lishna ma'alya. It's a nice way of saying it, but presumably in svara it makes sense even if she's bezana. Leima Messiah le Rav Hamnuna say it's a proof that Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna Shemar's yam shedin ta'asur li'chama. Like he said, even if she's bezana, she's also the avam. Lo, the Gemara rejects it. It's not necessarily a proof to Rav Hamnuna. Nisu dafka really is nisu dafka. Mishum de michlafa b'isha shahala ba'alim dinasam. Why is nisu different than bezana? Because really it's only the Rabbanan. She wasn't at fault in either of these cases. She's not at fault when she remarried. She didn't know that the woman doing Yibum was an islandess, or the arrow was an islandess. She didn't know that. So that is a case. So if she gets remarried, right? So that's similar to a case of a woman who her husband goes to Medina Siyam, and people come back, and Eid Echad comes back and says, your husband died, and she remarries, and then it turns out her husband wasn't dead, and he comes back. She also talks to an end of Mesachas Yevamos. So she has to leave both marriages, right? It's not her fault there, but she has to leave, right? So if we allow the case of Nisu, right, when she gets married, so people will confuse that, right, which is the case of her husband went to Nizam and she remarried. That's what it's talking. She remarried. So people there, they enforced her to give a get from both husbands. So this is a case similar over here. But Mizana, people don't know about it. It's not public knowledge, so therefore they didn't feel the necessity to penalize. Hakona says Yevimto. Right, again, the Mishnah talked about two cases in Yevamos. The Shricha, why does it say both cases? The Yashmin Bahak Kamaisa. If the Mishnah just talked about the first case, where the woman falling to Yibam was an erva, Mishum Dolekayim Mitzvahs Yibam. There they penalized because Yibam was never done. Aval Hacha, the second case, where the woman was taken into Yibam, and then she was later found to be an island, they Kayim Mitzvahs Yibam, Emalo. Maybe they don't penalize. Yashmin Hacha, maybe he just said it in the second case, Mishum the Karamya Kamei. Right, because at least in that case, the woman was fit for Yibum, right? She fell in front of the Yavam. Aval Hasa by Erva, the Loram Yakameh, right? She's not even fit for Yibum, she's an Erva, and that's why the Tsaros, the co-wives are exempted. Emolo, I shouldn't penalize her, because it's not even close to Yibum. Sricha, Kamashma, we do penalize them in these cases, even though it happened it was b'shogeg, it was a mistake. Nonetheless, because of what people are going to say, the Rabbanan penalized in these cases. We'll stop today's shir over here. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion, where I discuss, which I think is the accepted halacha, Rav's position. Rav's position is that there's a difference la halacha. If you write the wrong malchus, or you don't write malchus, then we say b'diavad the get is a valid get. She's allowed to remarry. We don't penalize her if she gets remarried. You shouldn't remarry, we don't penalize her. And we don't say the children are mamzerim. However, if the name of the man or woman is wrong, or the place where they live is wrong, then we do penalize them, and the vlad is a mamzer. What's the distinction? We'll explain it. Rashi and Tozad and Machlokas is a vlad mamzer daraisa, the Rabbanan. We'll talk about that. Even Ben Sion coming up next.